Welcome to Grounding Connection, where we are renaturing in relationship with climate change. This series demonstrates a different way to interact with our fear, anger, hopelessness, and helplessness around climate change, or collapse or sixth extinction, however you label it. I'm Betsy Kudlinski. I'm a freedom guide, like a nature guide, but the nature we're exploring is our own. As someone living with trauma, stress, and overwhelm, we work our way towards personal freedom. With our nervous system's interest and safety in mind, I guide us to trust our true nature and feel the freedom to walk our own paths in life. With training in somatic experiencing and life coaching, over 3 decades of working professionally with animals, and more than 20 years of interest in climate change, this project is an attempt at making a human impact. I'm representing only me and my work, which is how I use my knowledge and skills in relationship with community, with human and non human animals. I'm not portraying SE or even life coaching here. I fully acknowledge that I wouldn't be here doing this without the knowledgeable people in my social lineage. Also, the radiant humans with whom I couldn't record this series are volunteers, some of whom I've worked with in the past and some I've never met before. Everything beyond the first couple of minutes you'll see and hear is spontaneous. It's how I work and won't change it, even for YouTube. I'm deeply grateful for both these humans and for any and all humans who watch these episodes. If this episode is interesting or helpful to you, let me know. We all have to deal with YouTube's algorithms, so comment, like, subscribe, tell a friend. If it means a whole lot, I'd be delighted if you bought me a coffee. The link is in the description. Now, this episode is with Melissa. Her topic for the session is about grief of the mother and the political dichotomy we find ourselves part of. One of the things about inviting people to be who they are is that the most amazing wisdom comes out of each of us. This is the only video I have that has both of us on the screen all the time. If you have an opinion on this, let me know, so I can either change it or keep it the same when I start to record more. Hi, Melissa. How's it going
Hi,
today?
great, thank you.
Good. Um, I'm excited to have this session with you.
I'm excited
Uh,
too.
yeah, good. Good. I'm really glad.
Mm.
Um, so we were talking a little bit about what issue you might want to bring up in your system and work with today. And why don't you tell me a little bit of what you're thinking? What's swirling around right now for you?
Yeah, so I've been really struggling with climate grief for, I don't know, about a decade. Um,
Yeah.
and um, Part of it for me is as a mother, kind of worrying about what the world is going to look like in future decades.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, And especially this was the case because my son, who's kind of was kind of a vulnerable neurodivergent kid, was like nature from the time he was, really a baby was his great love. And,
Yeah.
we spent many, many hours just watching David Attenborough videos. Like we didn't have a TV, but that was like most of the media we consumed together.
Oh, how
Um,
fun. Did
yeah,
you
yeah,
did you learn to love David Attenborough as well?
absolutely.
Yeah.
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 And, And then, we would go to, of course, like parks and aquariums and all that. And, really, I learned with him because I didn't really have much science background.
Mhm.
Just learned about all this nature together with him as he was learning. And, um, and he's a learner, like he's a kid who just picks up on a lot. And
Yeah.
um,
What a
at some
joy.
point, yeah, yeah, and challenging too. um,
Mhm.
but at some point, I guess in third grade, we started homeschooling, and he did a lot of kind of, it was called like a nomadic nature awareness program where he would go to different
Mhm.
open spaces every week and learn a lot about the um, systems, ecological systems. And I learned about
Mhm.
that with him. And it always felt like, just as we were learning, and in some ways, even science was discovering stuff at the same time. And at the same time, that we were learning about all these intricacies, it seemed like they were all like at risk just as they were being
Mm.
uncovered. So there was always this
Yeah.
combination of like wonder and awe and heartbreak all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Is it okay to just pause here for a second?
Absolutely.
Wonder and awe. Can you feel those now?
Yeah, and it's totally
Yeah.
tangled up with heartbreak.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I saw was you got like a little taller and you got this huge smile on your face and it's tangled up with heartbreak too.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really hard to decipher those in this case, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so for me, like my relationship with nature and my relationship with my son are just so interconnected. Like I can't even really fully think about one without the other.
Wow. Yeah.
Um,
Again with the tangled up stuff, huh?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and for many years, it was in one way or another, like it's changed. Sometimes he wanted to be a marine biologist, or sometimes, mycology or this or that. But he always really wanted to be some kind of environmental scientist and working on
Mm.
that. And now he's in college and is trying to figure out what he wants to major in. And he called us the other night and was like, well, really, really, I want to do environmental science, but he's very uncomfortable with the politics around it. Um,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
possibly because my husband and I are pretty lefty and he's individuating. Right now, he's like
Yeah.
more on the other end
Yeah.
politically and for other reasons too. And so he's like, well, I don't know if it would be comfortable for me because all the environmental science space is so much on the political left, and I don't feel like I could like be safe there. It wouldn't be a safe space for me, basically. He didn't
Yeah.
use the word space, safe space, but that's what he
Yeah.
meant.
It's true, right? In this country,
Hmm.
environmental conservation, uh, even the narrative of climate change is really leftist,
Yeah,
and the right has, you know,
yeah,
decided to stand against that.
yeah.
And
And he keeps saying, that he'll vote with whoever he thinks is the best environmentalist,
yeah,
but he feels like it goes against his own other values.
yeah,
So it's his priority, but
yeah.
it's a hard thing for him.
So so I'm hearing the the let's see. We already did the wonder and awe and the
Hmm.
grief,
Yeah,
right? And then also um, worrying about your kid uh, coming into this ecosystem,
yeah,
this time of change, right? And the political ecosystem, where
right.
his heart is solidly green, if we can say that,
Hmm.
and uh, and he has other views, and that other views on top of that, and
Hmm.
feels isolated. I wonder how many other people are out there feeling super isolated
Yeah,
because of
probably
their.
a lot.
Yeah, yeah. As I'm watching this right now, I am very aware that Melissa has a lot to say here. This is so tangled up, and this this issue isn't easy. She can't pick, "Oh, I'm worried about rising sea levels." Um, and so what I'm doing as I, talk to her is just break it up a little bit. Part of that is for her nervous system. Part of it is to gain some clarity, some additional clarity here and there. And then there's also you, right? There's you
Hmm.
hurting for him. There's you hurting for the environment and the world and the country, right?
Hmm.
So if I can just ponder, how are you feeling right now as you've, spent this much time just telling me about this again, right?
I mean, I feel pretty tight inside.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it all of
it,
you that's tight or just
no, it's my heart, and
your heart?
I
Yeah.
just feel, pretty on edge, I guess.
Yeah. And how would you describe feeling on edge for you?
Oh, like I'm trying to contain myself and not like let it all out. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm curious why you don't want to let it all out.
probably habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's truly there, right?
hmm
Yeah. Is there anything under the habit?
Mm. Um, wow. I mean, that's about, gosh, like just trying to appear to be I mean, there's probably a lot of like social location stuff about trying to appear to just be someone who has it together. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
like, I struggle with that a lot because I work for an ecological nonprofit and I try to like
Mm.
just kind of be a lot of the people there are pretty, I don't know, have pretty strong personalities. And I try to be sort of the centered, calm person
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
and not to show my emotions too much.
Yeah.
And I know I have like close friends who kind of challenged me on that. And they're like, you would be even more powerful if you did start crying at a board meeting. That would be fine. But I try not to. I try to like, um, just have I don't know. I think it's probably just also how I was raised to not display negative emotions or too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because you work for an ecological nonprofit, I bet there's an awful lot of stuff that you have to read about and hear about and handle.
Mm.
That's pretty overwhelming in this regard.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and it also, I mean, we're trying to provide some sort of sense of purpose and community and solutions.
Yeah.
So that actually feels like a good space for me around this
Yeah.
and meeting other people who, care about it and are doing
Yeah.
stuff and are capable.
I give Melissa huge credit here. I made an assumption right off the bat that it would be hard to work um, at an ecological nonprofit and hear about all the awful stuff that was going on. And she's able to absolutely push back. And it makes me delighted that I was wrong in this one. Um, like a lot of us, I have a bias going in. And so my hope when working with people is that that bias doesn't show up that much, but it just did here. And she made sure I knew that that wasn't true for her. Yeah. So if for a second you can just feel into the fact that you are meeting a lot of people and you're building this community or you've built this community in it and
hmm
you're all feeling the same way and you're all in towards the same purpose,
hmm
um, ecological stuff, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I can imagine how that might make me feel or might help me feel. How is it? What does it do for you?
That was huge for me. I mean, I think before I found it, I was actually really quite depressed and
Mm,
finding that space.
yeah,
I mean, it's, like a lot of little nonprofits, it's always kind of endangered itself, right? Like,
yeah,
we're always worried about funding and this and that.
yeah,
Um, but even so, I have found a community there and some things that I feel like I can do so I don't feel completely helpless, or
yeah,
completely like, you know, I mean, I don't know like how much what I'm actually doing is actually making a real difference, but at least I feel like I'm doing something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you don't feel helpless. Does that mean you feel a little bit empowered? Does that
I
mean you
do.
feel like you have a little bit of agency?
Yeah, I do feel some sense of agency and some sense of support and community. I mean, I think this has also been another conflict with my son, not so much right now, but it's ironic, like even though I got into it because he was really passionate about native plants, which is a lot of what we do, um, he got he was just so uncomfortable with the time I was spending there, and with that, I went from being sort of a 110% full-time parent to having like a life outside of the
Yeah.
home, and that was something that he struggles with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, less so now as he's getting older, but it was a hard thing
Yeah.
for him in high school when we were transitioning around that.
Yeah. So I can imagine a little bit of guilt there.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting in this context, right? You
Hmm.
are leaving 110% full-time parent to go do the stuff that both of you are now passionate about,
Right. And on some level, I kind of felt like I was doing it for him. Like I wanted to,
right?
you know,
Right.
but it
Yeah.
turned out also to be very much for myself too.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
How does it feel to actually genuinely laugh for a sec there?
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how can you tell that you're a little bit more relaxed?
Uh, I felt like the tension in my body leave. Yeah.
All of it?
Most of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm really glad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, would it be okay to go back a little bit conversation?
Hmm.
This what's what's underneath the need to stay stoic,
Uh-huh.
the habit. Um you said that you know, a lot of it is how you were raised. Sure, absolutely. And you also feel that it's part of your role right now, especially at your job.
Hmm.
Yeah,
At least I've taken it on to be that. It's
yeah,
probably not really necessary.
yeah, yeah. And I'm wondering what you're missing. Do you have any idea what you're missing by not feeling the feels?
Hmm. Hmm. I have a feeling that I mean, I guess I think of it as um, kind of not being in my body when I'm not feeling the feels.
Yeah.
And maybe that I'm kind of trying to put my energy towards other people or try to solve their problems or try to make them feel better to make myself feel better in a way rather than just centering my experience in my own experience, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
Um,
I wonder if there's any connection between that and worrying for your son.
oh, no doubt. No doubt. I'm sure I was trained to do that as a
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I don't think other people really like it. I mean, I feel like I'm doing things for them, but I think that's not necessarily how people want space
Interesting.
to be held for them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something I'm trying to work on or, you know.
Yeah. That's interesting. And bringing this up, this whole possibility of trying to work on not being so stoic, not
Mhm.
what does that do to you to just bring that up again?
Um, it's kind of been my project for the last few months, like to try
Mm,
to transition around this and just be more present within myself and present for other people without trying to fix things.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I'm still probably in about second grade, when it
yeah.
comes to these things. Um,
And how about compared to when you were in kindergarten? in
Yeah,
this
no, I think
thing.
I've come a long ways in
Yeah.
getting there. Yeah.
How's that look? Can you like figure out what it looks, how it's different now than it was a few months ago?
Um, it seems like some of my friends are just a little more comfortable with me, around, when they're having their own trauma or problems or whatever.
Mhm.
If I'm like trying to just stay more within myself and just witness their process
Yeah.
rather than try to immediately solve their problems.
Yeah.
Um, and um, in terms of professionally, I mean, there's a lot of overlap because a lot of my close friends are also at this nonprofit. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, it's and so a lot of the challenges we have are related to that. There's a lot of tangled up stuff in my life, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, which is, overall, it's feels like a good thing, but
Yeah. Yeah. There's no judgment there. That's just a
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I'm endlessly amused watching this session. I don't know Melissa very well at all. I have a passing uh, acquaintance with her, and I'm not sure that we've ever worked together, and so I'm amused by myself trying to feel her out. And it's just so fun to get to know somebody new. It's totally fun to work with somebody I know and have worked with, and it's totally fun to I just keep kind of nudging here and here and here. And we've hit on a couple things, and they're not all right, or right is the wrong term, but they're not all hits. But there's a lot of things that are interesting and helpful. Um, and so this is fascinating for me to watch. So I'm curious how you responded to your son the other night when he suggested
Mm,
that he wasn't
yeah,
sure about heading into environmental science.
right. I think I tried to be at the moment we were on the phone,
Mhm.
um, and I was parked in my car, uh, and I was trying to kind of be supportive and be like, well, you should kind of prioritize your own, like, he was sort of saying, well, like, maybe I just want to get done with, instead of having a double major, maybe I just want to get done with my undergraduate so I can start my life. And I'm like, well, this is your life. You need to
Yeah.
kind of prioritize some sort of balance and happiness right now and have experiences, like find
Wow.
the things that you love and do them right now,
Yeah.
um, rather than thinking that that's something that's going to happen in the future. And, you know, I mean, I'm sure if you decide to major in biology instead of environmental science and you still want to like prioritize supporting nature or ecology in your life, there will be paths towards that, you know,
Mhm.
you can feel okay about, but maybe it's not the right place for you right now, too. And, you know, so I tried to be really supportive, but then the next day I found myself like I was talking to friends and
Mhm.
who were like, well, my husband's like an environmental scientist and he has to do a lot of work across the aisle and whatever. And I was like, maybe that could be a place for you. Like maybe you're someone who kind of can see things from different perspectives and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And
um,
did you actually say that to him?
I texted that. He didn't respond. So I don't know if that was me kind of trying to like push him a little or problem solve for him, but I think he was also asking for that. I think he was just feeling really confused and um, just wanting some
Yeah.
other perspectives about what his career could be. And I I don't have a really clear sense of that myself because I have such a different. I mean, my degree is in English, so I don't really
Mm.
know like
Mhm.
how that field plays out. But
Yeah. Yeah. And it struck me that it sounded like you were kind of okay with how you responded to him.
I mean, I don't know. It's not everything I want to say to him, but I'm trying to be support where he's at right now too.
Yeah, of course, it's really
Um,
hard, right? It's really hard to raise
hmm
a kid.
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think I did okay. I hope he felt that way too. I'm not sure.
yeah. I wonder how often we actually know
Hmm.
how the other person feels about the conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can have that external meta conversation and not always. Yeah. So if we loop it back a little bit to, let's see, there's a lot, right? There's a whole lot in this conversation. So there's it feels to me like it keeps coming back to that wonder and awe and
Hmm.
grief that you were
Hmm.
initially talking about. I feel like, I feel that all the time,
Yeah.
right? And I wonder how often that's how we end up working in environmental stuff, in places where we hope to fix things, to
Yeah.
help things because of that grief that goes with it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And what are you noticing now in your body as I've brought that back up again?
Um, it was sort of calming, but in a sad way.
Oh, interesting. Can you tell me more about that?
Um, like a little bit deflating, maybe. Like not not deflating like that sounds a little more negative than it was, but I think I tend to get like excited and kind of buoyant maybe, and it was sort of like, oh, I just kind of bringing stuff back um,
Huh.
and down a bit.
In and down a bit. And so, uh, how about qualitative? Positive, negative, neutral? Like, how do you feel now? Or how was that shift?
I don't really want to describe it as negative, but
Mm,
there's a little bit of like kind of letting the grief back in a little bit.
yeah. Is that
Um,
okay?
yeah, it's okay. I don't see it as something that I'm trying to avoid
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Um, but it feels kind of anchoring, maybe.
Yeah. The grief itself or the
Yeah.
concept? Yeah. Hmm.
Um, if yeah, as long as it's not too overwhelming, right?
Right. Right. And that's why I asked if it was okay to feel the grief right now because it can get really overwhelming.
Hmm.
Yeah. But it sounds like it isn't right now.
Yeah, yeah. So I think if it feels tempered by other things and supported with other people, and then it feels
Yeah.
um, like it's just there as part of me rather than something that's trying to take over or
Yeah.
feeling like flooded with it.
Yeah. That's pretty
Yeah.
wise. Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you're alone, if you aren't surrounded by people, if you don't have the support, what do you do with that grief?
Well, as I said, I mean, I think for many years I was just really depressed and doing very little. I was just kind of hanging out and playing video games and reading and just kind of trying to
Yeah.
escape those feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, or, you know, scrolling through Facebook or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And now you have that support system.
Hmm.
And what have you done to build that support system? Has it been on purpose or has it just happened?
It was kind of on purpose. we moved here about, I don't know, 7 years ago, and at the same time, my son started going to a public high school. Um, and so I had time, and
Mm-hmm.
I, met this woman who was the founder of the nonprofit.
Hmm.
Uh, and I was like, oh, well, I can write if you need any help with writing. And she was like, oh, yeah, I do. So I just started volunteering like almost full time there. And it was already small, but it got even smaller through the pandemic, and we just kind of kept it afloat. But now it's expanding again, and we're expanding our programs, and everything is kind of coming back to life. And
Yeah, that sounds
so
exciting.
it is exciting, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So I love that it was kind of on purpose.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it was. And it also, I mean, I think I just had assumed that since I don't really have a lot of knowledge in this field, that I wouldn't really be able to do anything in it.
yeah.
Um, but that wasn't the case. Like I did find lots that I could do.
Wow.
Um,
Melissa and I have just spent 20 minutes um, kind of passing stuff back and forth. Um, and so what I'm doing now is just, okay, well, hey, maybe that's as much as is there. So maybe settling, maybe bringing, see if we can find a baseline. Um, and again, don't know Melissa. So I don't really know at this point what a baseline might look like for Melissa. But again, endlessly fascinated, deeply enjoying the conversation one way or another.
so I was able to like write a lot of curriculum and write grants and help with emails and just with relationship stuff. And
Very
and
cool.
and through that, I've kind of learned a lot more about the ecology stuff,
Yeah, sure.
um,
Yeah,
and met people who know a lot about it.
yeah. So it started for your son and now it's for you.
Yeah, I think so.
That's good. He's off at college. He
Yeah,
needs something for you, right?
yeah, very much so.
And the support system in order to hold the grief.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So checking in with yourself again. How you doing now?
Um, it's interesting. I think every time we kind of get going, I sort of go out of my body a little bit, and then I
Yeah,
kind of have to pull myself back in.
yeah. How do you do that?
Um,
How do you pull yourself back in?
um, so this is some exercises I've done with another friend of mine who does some of this work, and um, it starts just kind of by asking myself if I'm in my body
Mm-hmm.
and trying to locate where I am in relation to my body. And
Mm-hmm.
after doing that for a while, I could start to feel it. Like I don't know what that me is exactly. Is it my spirit? Is it whatever it is?
Yeah,
But something.
yeah,
And just kind of almost imagining. Sometimes it feels like it's kind of out here a little bit, and I just kind of imagine
yeah,
bringing it back into my core, and then I can kind of feel it there, and I feel more grounded.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. That's wonderful. I'm really
Thanks.
glad that you have these strategies. You know, you made a support system. You've got these strategies for bringing yourself back when you realize that you're not there.
Yeah. So it's that, and then also like just breathing gently. If it's still
Mm-hmm.
difficult, just
Mm-hmm.
like gentle breathing usually helps to kind of
Mm-hmm.
settle everything a bit.
Yeah, yeah. And are you settled a bit?
I am. I mean, in a way, this is kind of exciting. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
but yeah, I do feel settled.
yeah. How can you tell that this is exciting?
Um, that's a good question. Um, I feel excited. It's exciting to kind of talk about this stuff with someone who
Yeah.
has similar concerns,
Yeah.
and and also just to be thinking about these ways of um, doing it in a more somatic way, which is something I struggle with. Like I've been most of my life very, very much in my head and not in my body.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
was like very much like a kid who spent all their time reading.
Mhm.
Like I avoided anything physical. Like,
Yeah.
if I had to play PE, I would like, kind of like,
Yeah.
oh no, a ball is coming, run the other way. Um,
Mhm.
I was just not at all an embodied kid, I guess. And I mean, except in some ways, I guess all kids are, but as I got older, I really just avoided that whole side of myself. And now I'm trying to live in my body more and pay a little
Yeah.
more attention.
Yeah. That's great. That's really
Yeah.
fun.
And it feels like it makes me more effective, like more able to be
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for your friends,
For anybody. Yeah.
for your son, for anybody. Yeah. Are you able to be more present for you?
Hmm. Yeah. I think previously I was doing a lot, like even hanging out with people just to try to sort of escape myself and escape
Mhm.
the things I was worried about or the experience. And I think this process has somehow allowed me to be more present with myself,
Yeah.
um, and not feel like I always need to distract myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're in second grade in this process.
Something like that.
What are your plans? Do you want to go to grad school or are you going to like go to trade school after high school and call it good?
I think in elementary school, you're not worried about that yet. I don't know.
It's true.
Yeah,
That
I'm
is a
still just
really good answer. Let's take this moment at a time, shall we?
yeah, yeah. I'm still just playing, learning the basics.
Yeah, good. That's awesome. How do you feel? Do you feel complete? Anything else?
Yeah, I do feel pretty complete. Yeah.
Yeah, good. If you were moved by this episode in any way, take a minute. If you have the freedom, don't jump into the next thing. We absorb the goodness of our feelings after the fact, so pause if you can. Don't forget to do the things that every YouTuber tells you to do, like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. I'd love for this series to reach the people it will impact the most, and it can't do that if they never find it. Take care of yourself.